So Schumacher now about to go on to a quick lap, and that was a good clean exit that time.
That was gorgeous, did it to perfection.
So Schumacher really setting himself up now, and this is where the challenge to Damon Hill will really begin. David Coulthard, by the way, has just gone second fastest, and the difference between him and teammates Hill, 0.3 of a second. But Schumacher now, with that little bit of brake blocking going up into the first corner, is on a quick lap, that's for sure. And let's watch this lap and just see if we can try and identify where he's gaining time. Watch the split times. You can see he's already up on that split time.
But look at the hands blur as they go from right to left to right. And now down one of the quicker parts of the circuit under the bridge. Very bumpy for braking. Easy to over brake and slide into that gravel bed. That's where we saw Martin Brundle off. Now the final rush down to the furthest part of the circuit from start finish, and the slowest part of the circuit. One part where everybody knows they can outbrake, and look, he's increasing that gap over 0.3 of a second. He's still got virtually a kilometre to go before he gets back to start finish, but letting the back of the car drift out like that, using the tyres so severely, that can shave a few hundredths of a second away. You must control your emotions, not get carried away with the joy of driving a Grand Prix car. And with the cars as we see them this year with the lower downforce, you can let them slide, but that hurts the time.
So here comes Schumacher then, exiting. It looks as though this lap is going to be a big improvement. Is he going to go faster to 28.283 from Hill, the time to beat? And it's 0.2 of a second faster. Michael Schumacher grabs the provisional pole position.
Well, let's get back to Michael Schumacher, and already almost 100th of a second up. And that's the point in the circuit. From here back to the start-finish straight, this is where he lost that 1/10 of a second. You're talking about fractions of seconds, but to a driver, a 1/10 of a second is like a day, a second's a week, and anything else, we'll forget about it.
So Schumacher, that 28.083, that's the standard that he's set now, with exactly 0.2 of an advantage over Damon Hill. Now, can he further improve that mark? Can he put it further away from the two Williams who are behind him at the moment? A 27.661, and just look at the advantage now. Very nearly half a second. Absolutely. Schumacher now going to see whether he can further improve on that provisional pole time, however, of 27.661. Still plenty of laps left.
A lot of understeer for Schumacher as he turned in. I expected to see the car up the curb. He turned the wheel. He didn't plan to use a lot of it, but he did plan, he missed. So the grip at the front in that particular corner was not there when Schumacher called upon it. But he is already a 1/10 of a second quicker. So whatever it was has been addressed. Schumacher looking to find an improvement on the 1:27.661. Split time, the first split time, that's as the cars now come down, or that quick right-left. Rubens Barrichello ahead of him shouldn't be a problem, but it's going to be close by the end of the lap.
Just a fraction slower, 33 thousandths of a second slower than his previous best. The question is, can he make that up at all on the final part of the circuit? Out of that very, very slow hairpin where they dropped down to about 35 miles an hour. Then to this rebuilt chicane, again to slow the car down, getting past Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello keeping out of the way, no hindrance.
And generously stayed over to the right, let Schumacher through, and in effect didn't really lose any time. And that was intelligent and kind use of the mirror and the circuit by the young Brazilian. But Schumacher hoping for improvement. 1/10 of a second away that lap.
I'm Bob Barsha with David Hobbs and Steve Matchett. There's a look across the mighty St. Lawrence River.
And that river is impressive there. There is no doubt about it.
There is Michael Schumacher on pole, an important one for Renault. Michael leading the Drivers' Championship. At least one example of the prancing horse on every podium of the season. Schumacher on the right, Hill on the left. Dropping his visor, here we go. Schumacher a little slow to get away and immediately drives straight across the racetrack. Take the dry line.
And Coulthard tries to follow through.
Always difficult down here in the tail enders. Michael immediately opening up a gap.
They don't have those gravel tracks like a ploughed field anymore. They decided that wasn't really the way to go.
David Coulthard rues what might have been.
A very young David Coulthard who wanted to drive for Williams again this year in 2005, but Patrick Head was having none of it. And I guess that things like that is what Patrick Head was remembering.
Perhaps. In our previous show, we saw...
Look at the lead that Michael Schumacher has got already over Damon Hill. There you see the jump to the penalty for Mika Salo.
Fairly Mickey Mouse chicane to slow the enormous speeds on this long run down to the pit in. Start-finish chicane.
There's that bit of painted concrete, which of course gets particularly slippery when it gets wet. There you see the gap between first and second, almost the entire length of the front straightaway. Was he supposed to go there? I don't think he was.
I can hear the official. Love this camera.
The dear old drivers.
Always makes the debriefs interesting.
That's right.
There's Michael. Flashing down that straightaway over 200 miles an hour and bumpy.
Another circuit that's very, very tough on brakes.
Mark Blundell ahead of him in the McLaren. Look at the marbles building up offline. .69-lap race. Just past half distance. Well, approaching half distance. Michael comes around to complete lap 35.
Got a blow-by going on that engine.
Michael Schumacher with traffic. Oh, Damon Hill parks on the front straightaway.
Hydraulics failure. Whoa, Damon. That's not doing good.
So once again, fortune shines on Michael Schumacher, who, it should be noted, has that same Renault V10 in the back of his Benetton. 5 cars remain on the lead lap. Track about 2 3/4 miles around. Oh, Schumacher's slowing on the backside. The race leader with a problem.
Gearbox problems. Driver reporting, I've lost control of the gearbox. It's just not doing as it should do. Michael's saying, changing up and down gears, but the gearbox controller is just doing whatever it wants to do its own accord. I've got no control over it.
Look how close the spectators can get to the racetrack, as I mentioned earlier. Now, Michael Schumacher is known to take a car stuck in gear to the race finish. But he is going very slowly here, and lo and behold, who will that elevate into the first position? Look at the crowd. Driving the number 27 Ferrari, so closely associated with the late Gilles Villeneuve, for whom the circuit is named, Jean Lacey will take the Ferrari into first place.
I mean, that crowd there going berserk when Lacey takes the lead.
He's not there yet.
Benetton engineers and the Renault engineers looking at the data streaming off the car now. Ross Brawn and Pat Simmons, the technical engineers at Benetton, pondering what to do, if anything, to get Michael Schumacher back into the race. The first thing to do is jack the car up, because it will be in gear. Change the steering wheel is standard practice, because the gear selector mechanism is on the steering wheel.
Well, can't do it, so Michael will do it himself.
Now you can just see a black cable going into the car there, and you'll see a very old-fashioned by today's standard laptop, probably about $6,000 worth back in 1995. Dave Ashton, the guy toying over the laptop, looking at the gearbox controller if he can figure out what is happening with it. It's basically no more than a little computer mechanism built within the car.
Michael Schumacher's right hand in the air. That means I'm ready to start this thing whenever you boys are.
It'll have to start in gear. Michael finds neutral, but still problems with the gearbox controller. Now at this point, Ross Brawn, I think, is about ready to retire the car, thinking we've got terminal problems. The heavy lead on the right is the jump battery, the slave battery. Dave Ashton yet again looking at the gearbox controller and finally figures that what happens, you just need to switch the system off completely and reboot it, just as you would do a computer if the screen locked, and lo and behold, the car was perfect.
That moves Michael Schumacher up a spot into 5th, and as you see, the German getting with the program after that long pit stop to figure out what the electronic difficulty was in his gearbox. Right now, the lead belongs to that man, the Ferrari of Jean Lacey, much to the delight of this Canadian crowd.
And at this point, as he starts the final lap, he was saying that he was crying so much that every time he braked, the tears would come out of his eyes and bounce off his visor. Which I find a bit of a stretch, but
He's certainly a very emotional driver.
Listen to the crowd.
and of course a very emotional crowd because the car he's driving, the number 27 Ferrari, was driven by Gilles Villeneuve, who is, as we said at the beginning of the show, the patron saint of motorsports in Canada.
Of course,
Never quite sure why, personally, but people think that Gilles Villeneuve was something very, very special, but I never actually saw it myself, but there it is.
of course. Remember, you have to be very careful here on Canada. No stopping Jean Alesi this time. Just one more time through the start-finish S's. Look at the Ferrari team going crazy. First career Formula One victory for Jean Alesi. And other than perhaps at Monza or Imola,
Second and third, I mean, that was terrific. An ideal opportunity for Jean Alesi to show himself off to the crowd.
And Michael Schumacher managing to pick up 2 points into that race.
Picked up 2 points and the driver.
And the driver. Benetton taxi service.
that's right, the two-man Benetton. Of course, as history would attest, it would be the one and only Formula One victory of Jean Alesi's career. Here's a look at the final results.